Good evening, everyone. I'm your host, Rogan Smith, flying solo for the moment. My co-host, Edward Fields, is on his way, but of course I have my regulars in studio. So I want to say good afternoon to Candy. You mad at me, baby?
Not at all.
Okay.
Why would you think that?
To Candelaria Thompson. And of course, Kendrick Williams. Ken, what you say?
Hey, what's happening? I'm good, man.
Kendrick got on
Happy
his
Monday.
Happy Monday, baby. You got on your R.M. Bailey striped, candy striped shirt.
Right?
Very dapper, very dapper.
Yeah, thank you.
How was the weekend, y'all?
The weekend was good.
Candy mad?
Yes, she mad.
Yes, you're mad.
She catch
And I can
feelings
call you
mad.
out. I can call you out on radio.
I'm not.
Yes,
no,
you're mad.
I'm not mad.
Yes, you're mad. That ain't you.
I'm not mad
That ain't
at
you.
all.
What happened?
We
What
had
is- what do you
we
call
had a
it then?
conversation that's spilling over.
Just because I went quiet.
No, Candy, that ain't you.
Just because I go on quiet.
I was
yes,
just-
I'm reflecting. Can
Oh,
I not
okay.
reflect
Okay.
on what has
All
been
right.
said?
Translation: angry.
No,
Yeah.
I'm not angry.
All right. then.
I'm not angry.
So let's start this again. Kendrick, how was your weekend, darling?
The weekend was good, man.
Yeah,
Yes.
Candy.
It was good. Yes, there was one. I worked partially, but Sunday I laid right out.
Yeah,
Yes, for the first time I stayed at home all day, and it was just wonderful.
I was stuck doing homework. Any of y'all went to the International Food Festival?
That couldn't
no.
even get me out there.
No,
It's okay.
No.
you didn't do
No,
it.
I didn't go.
Why?
No.
I need to go running,
Really?
not eating.
If I wasn't, I made it a priority. I said this weekend I was going to do homework.
I haven't been
And
there
I
in
s-
years.
I haven't been in like 3 years, and I said I wasn't going to spend any money. And I know every time I go there, I say, oh, I could take $50. Then I end up running to go to the ATM to go get more
Exactly.
money.
I think they have ATM there now.
Stop. BOBA, or one of them, I think one of the
Exactly.
banks sponsors them. That's right.
B.O.B.
Oh, shoot. So then make sure. Well, I don't have a BOB account
Okay,
though, so
all
that's the only thing. So
Exactly.
So yeah,
That
no,
don't
but
mean much.
yeah. So I end up going to the ATM and then going back, and then $300 later, you spend buying all kinds of stuff, candles, and all kind of crazy stuff out there.
I hadn't heard anything about it either. Maybe because I shut myself off.
What, from the fest?
Yeah, and just like, I don't know I don't know anybody who went, and if they did go, they didn't discuss it. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I hope they had a good crowd out there. So
I think
in the
so.
past, it's been really fun.
Yeah.
Nice little family fun activity. Some things we got to discuss here. It's a good weekend, but very sad for a Bahamian family after this 8-year-old girl, Zion Smith, passed away. She
That's
fell
a tough one.
on the cruise. At first I didn't even know she was a Bahamian. I thought it was an American girl who fell on Carnival. I can't even imagine you going on your trip and you lose a family
I
member.
already have a fear of cruises. I ain't
Do
gonna
you?
lie. I do. I've never been on one,
No?
No.
Can't you been on a cruise?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
Yeah. I
And
don't
so
know.
that does not help me.
Oh, wow.
You could be
yeah.
holding your children extra tight.
Jeez.
But no, I'm so sorry for the family of Zion Smith. 8-year-old girl, beautiful girl. I saw a picture in today's Tribune. Beautiful little girl. It's just so sad for the family to have to now bury them, their loved
Yes.
one. You're going on your trip and you're just trying to have a little family fun, and that happens.
Sincere condolences.
So our condolences, of course. Another thing I wanted to discuss. Politicians just never cease to amaze me. They really never cease to amaze me. I'm reading this story about Dr. Dwayne Sands and the fact that he still performs surgeries. PLP Chairman Bradley Roberts brought this to the fore, discussing the fact that this is a conflict and, he's violating the code of ethics by working. Come to find out, Dr. Sands has been donating his time to some patients, and he says he won't let them die because he's a thoracic surgeon. These people
And
who
the
are still
only
in
one.
need, and they have severe shortages. And so at the end of the day, Bradley Roberts thought he was exposing Dr. Sands, and yes, he may have exposed the fact that he's doing it, but he made him look like a superstar.
Exactly.
Because
And not only that, who are you for? Who are you for the people, eh?
I mean,
Who are you for?
You know how many people out there need the surgery?
Exactly. So
Dwayne Sands said
that's so messed up on so many levels.
he had the approval. He said he got the blessing from cabinet, so they were well aware. This isn't something he was doing secretly. He's helping those patients over at the Rand, and he said he's going to continue doing it free of charge. He said he's always done it. And what kills me is the hypocrisy. Okay, and you gotta be real. I remember just a few months ago in the run up to the election, a former cabinet minister in the PLP administration was accused of basically soliciting an investor, an international investor. Mr. Roberts sat on this very show and said, I don't know anything about it. I don't know anything about
So
it.
how you know about all these other things?
And now you know about somebody in a completely different party. I mean, you
Yeah.
got to be real.
Yes.
But I think he aired because he didn't find out all the information before he spoke, and then come to find out this man isn't even getting a salary from it. He's doing it free of charge. So, like I said, something that was meant to embarrass him ended up making him look like a superstar. So,
Well, there you go.
well, good
Good
job,
job.
To Dr. Sands, and I know that the patients who are being treated are
my
very, very
goodness.
happy about that. Very,
Very
pleased
charitable.
about that. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep. So, Candy, with Taguan.
Not a thing.
Candy.
No, I was trying to think of what I saw in the news today.
What's that?
That this is that was international news.
No, what is it?
No, like in Somalia. Did you hear about that? The bomb, it's possibly like the worst bomb ever. In Mogadishu.
Mm.
And it just, just walking regularly down the street, and this truck bomb just goes off, and apparently it's like 300 people killed so far.
I saw on CNN. I can't even imagine. I remember. I feel like since I was a kid, this has been going on. It's never been like a break in. Well, look who walked in. Oglio. And I'm sitting in your
Get out
chair,
of his chair now.
and your chair
Ow.
is so high, my legs are dangling. Hold on to our
He
listeners
is
as
like 6'5",
I move.
6'4".
It isn't
I'm
my-
5'4".
It isn't my chairs are high, it's just your legs are short.
Or you're just
both.
you're short.
It's both.
Oh, I got a shooting pain in my head.
How are you? I'm all right. What a day. It's what a stressful day, man.
You breathing all up in our listeners' ears?
Come, I need the thing for the headphones.
Welcome to you, Edward Fields, to the Ed Fields Live show. How are you?
I'm fine.
Yeah?
What's that face?
What's all this breathing up in the people's air? These people had a long
I
day
wish
at work.
I wish
in the
I
drive
could,
time, they
y'all
would
could see
hear all
Ed.
this.
Like, it's just,
He hungry? He said he ate in the car.
I ate in the car.
Ed's expressions are all a part of his,
I've
comedic.
had 5 meetings today with government entities.
Ooh,
That's cool.
that's rough.
That's cool. He just came back from one.
Yep.
It is what it is.
Boy.
Oh, okay. While he coughs, what were we talking about in
Yeah,
Somalia?
y'all talk, y'all
I
do your
said,
thing.
I felt like from I was a little girl, all this conflict has been going on. It's like it just seems never ending.
And never ending. It doesn't.
I remember, jeez, they used to have a lot of like cafe bombings, and so you'd see people sitting outside having their coffee, and then boom.
I wrote some quote the other day, like hate. It's caused a lot of problems in this world, but it hasn't solved one yet.
No, absolutely not.
Can we stop hating?
I feel so bad for those people. I mean, that's one way I don't want to go.
Difference. I mean, yeah.
I don't want to go that way.
It makes you scared to travel. No matter.
Would you go to the Middle East if someone gave you a free trip?
It depends on where.
Afghanistan.
Like where. I have I don't know. I think I would be too nervous.
Yeah? Just even on the
Just
flight,
by
I'd be
myself?
nervous. A coworker of mine went to London recently, and I don't even want to go to London.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't even want to go to London.
I know.
I don't even want to say it. I just don't even want to. Yeah, let me stay on this.
Yeah,
Let me stay on this.
It makes you a little bit more fearful of traveling, and it's that really sucks.
I can stay in the archipelago. Yeah.
Hey, stay right here on this rock.
So you saw these passengers who were on Air Asia flight. They're mad at their flight crew. I don't know if you saw it. Kendrick, I know you always up on things, but they're mad at the flight crew because the plane must have dropped 20,000 feet, and the crew.
20,000?
That's a lot. And the flight crew started allegedly screaming. And so the people are mad because they said it caused them to panic. Well, the plane turned back around, landed in Australia safely. Everything was cool. But I think they were really upset. Said, well, they caused us to panic. Well, Jesus, you dropped 20,000 feet.
20,000 feet. Train flight attendant or not, I scared.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a human being.
You're a human being. I don't understand it. Like, yes, they're trained professionals, but what you expect for them to do, just be like remaining.
And suppose that was their first encounter of anything of that level,
20,000 feet ain't no drop.
But hold
ain't
on,
no
you
small
had to
thing.
been traveling. They were flying 45,000 feet up in the air.
Jesus.
Because
Yeah.
20,000, that's a little
that's
close to the
huge.
ground.
Huge,
Yikes.
as Ed's friend would say. So no, what we're talking about. Oh, we gotta go take a break. Let's take a break real quick. We'll be right back on Ed Fields Live. We'll continue with Candy and her topic, which we were arguing about on the break before we started. We'll be back.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Ed Fields here along with Rogan Smith and Kendrick and Candy. My apologies for being late. I was, how much late was I? About 2 or 3 minutes?
No.
How much?
Like 15.
Yeah.
I was 15 whole minutes?
A little bit.
Almost 15.
I'm going to defer to Ken. How long was I late?
15 minutes.
20?
Ah!
No, 20. Well, I came in here at 5:30. You know what?
minutes.
Actually, you're right. You know what happened? I came into the... It's amazing how time goes by, right? I came into the parking lot at 5:32, but then I went on the phone. You're right.
Yeah, you can tell what your priority is.
Yeah. What's that?
As you can tell what your priority is.
Yeah, well, in this instance, boy, anyway. Let me tell you something. I don't know how the average person does it. You know, and by the way, we have to go through rules and regulations. I get it. You know, I mean, that's the only way to have an orderly society. But it's so complex, you know, to get us a certain thing done. Assuming you want to do the thing in the right way, okay? You will go and say, let's just say you want to apply for, like, you know, yellow margarine, okay? Well, you know, you'd think you'd go to the department that's responsible for applying for margarine, and you'd say, look, I want to apply for yellow margarine, and you would hope that they would tell you these are the things that you need to do. It happens in private sector too, by the way. You know, you go to the bank and you say, I want to apply for X, and it's as if every single time you go, they have a new set of rules that they don't know about. So they tell you, go off and get these 5 things, and you go and you get them back, and when you come back, they go, okay, and I'll need these other 2 things as well.
That happens a lot in the government.
No, I said government and private sector.
But it happens a lot in the government.
Yeah, well, I mean, you go to a bank or a thing now. I actually said to someone the other day, to an insurance company and bank, is this the first time y'all done this? Because it appeared, like one company asked me, they had to get an assignment of my insurance, right? So they couldn't find it or whatever. So they said, well, we'll have to certify that you have the insurance. We have to do a certification. So I said, okay, no problem. Can you send me the form? So they send me form. They say, yeah, and it'll take 7 days. I said, hold on a second. It's going to take you 7 days to verify that I have an insurance with you? I mean, isn't it like 5 minutes? If you work to Sunshine Insurance, giving you a plug. If someone calls and says, listen, Rogan Smith, does she have insurance with you? Don't you go on like the computer and see it and then go, yeah?
Yeah. You need 7 days to get back and say she got insurance?
I mean, what kind of slow computer do you have?
People call us all the time to verify that, you know, people have insurance. It's a very quick process.
You deal with like a Commodore computer or something like that, eh?
A what?
You don't even know about that, eh?
A Commodore. It's Commodore 64. I used to have one of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know about the Commodore.
Are you dealing with like, you know, the hourglass type thing? Are we on that level? Anyway, it's and what it does is it wears you down, and there's no need to be worn down. Hey, Candy.
Hi. Hey.
You ready to do the music?
Sorry. Yeah. Oh, not the music.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
No. Because, you know, you were late, so I had to fill in.
Oh, okay. But I thought you were filling in on the other stuff, and then we would talk about your stuff.
No, we were talking about Mr. Roberts and some other stuff, and then the little girl who passed away.
Well, see, this is the thing. I'm going to see how this happens. I'm prepared for it. Remind me, and this will be off the air, I'll tell you, to remind me to say to you, when I say to you, if this happens, when it happens, remind me to refer to this moment, okay? Because I don't understand how politicians work. I just finished talking to someone, by the way, a minister, about this. Because, you know, the opposition for opposition's sake, even when they know ahead of time, the information.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, I don't think the case with Dwayne Sands, I guess you can't give free service. If you're one of the only ones qualified.
Unless it's your family member.
You know, and that's the thing.
In need.
Yeah, and that's the thing, you know. You never even think about things until it
hits you. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Can I get some of that pro? You know, behaviors we like to shorten things. You know, we ain't adding the bono.
Just the pro.
Let me get some of that pro.
I told Kendrick and Candy, I said, for the individuals who get that much needed surgery, they're very grateful to them.
They don't find it unethical.
No. He ain't getting no money for it.
That's going to die down in 2 seconds. Okay?
I think
How about that?
That's a wrap on that.
That's a wrap?
I said he ended up looking like a superstar because I didn't even know he was doing that. I didn't even know that. Pro bono.
There you go.
What you got, girl?
Well, before you
I
came,
feel like holy crap.
you
You
feel
had a
like
thing?
holy crap?
Go ahead.
No, I said we were continuing the conversation we had a couple of weeks ago. And I think I rehatched that topic.
You don't even remember it.
What was it about? What was it about?
The spanking.
Hitting.
Oh, hitting, yeah. Can I play you something on WhatsApp?
Pardon?
Can I play you something off of WhatsApp?
Sure.
I got to find it, though. So continue to talk.
Right. Hey, go.
This man's so tacky.
I am tacky, but I want to show you this because it's really funny.
So it's, as promised, we said that we would just continue the conversation we were having about 2 weeks ago with that video incident with we're not talking about abuse, but we scaled it back and talked about hitting as a tool of disciplining a child. And Tashina was here at that time, so when Sheens, which she had the view of my good friend Rogi over here as well.
Rogi had the same view of Sheens?
I said I don't have a problem with spanking.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, but I thought you were talking. You had a different thing, though. We talked about it. You were concerned about that. You didn't need to see the video.
I didn't need to see the video to know that.
That was we're not talking about abuse.
Yeah, so I'm in with Rogues because, as I told you, I view things as not black and white in this arena.
Right.
Yeah.
But what is black? Explain that to me.
Like, in other words, no spanking is black and spanking is white.
All the time is white, exactly.
There's gray. There's I even, remember you had a little burn on your hand, and I tap you. Because you put your hand in the cookie jar.
Oh, and I have something for that too.
The
hitting on the hands.
Yeah, I don't care about those.
No,
people.
you gotta listen to the experts.
No, I want to listen to this one first. Can I listen to this one first?
It's
completely unrelated, but it's funny.
Okay. Oh.
Listen to this.
I know very many married women will then begin to maybe even attack or oppose my position. But I feel that side checks are important. We need in society to acknowledge the importance of these people and stop marginalizing them. Some of us are tired. You've had 3 children. You must still have a career and kill in houses. Then you must come home and service somebody. But if you outsource and allow others to service, you arrive to a happy man.
She said outsource.
She won the award for Wife of the Year.
Outsource.
She said outsource.
Yeah, outsource that.
We did say that we were going to talk about that.
That's amazing. Me and him are so in sync.
Wait a sec.
Before the show started,
we were talking about.
Yeah, that's what we talking about.
We are too in sync.
Outsource. Oh, well, I'd say. Yeah,
say that. You're right home to a happy man.
Yeah.
3 children.
She must be the side
and you
chick.
Must you have the 3 children and thing, and then you come home and you expect to service him?
Right.
No, you need to outsource that.
Outsource that.
And you come home to a happy man.
Can we have her on the show?
I can't get over that one.
Why you can't get over that?
No, that's so clever. Yes, outsource it.
Guess what?
Guess so.
I'm going to find a woman. I can pay for a ticket to come here.
Stop marginalizing the side chick.
The side chicks.
You're marginalizing them.
Well, and women could must see outsource too then.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No problem. Outsource away.
Oh.
Yeah.
The whole thing. You know what? The whole damn thing is falling apart anyway. Okay?
We were talking about this too. Oh my goodness.
Oh my goodness.
How many people would be open to outsourcing?
Well,
we outsource for lots of other things.
I think it's enterprise.
Yeah.
Well, but let's listen. You know what I say about things like this, and we can get back to the spanking thing. I don't want to marginalize that either. It's like, how do we in the world? It's like the prohibition. Remember prohibition? Mm-hmm. Okay. So for centuries, people were having a couple of cocktails. You know what I mean? Back in the day of what's the place name? The medieval days, they had the mead or whatever you call it, the wine. They had people are drinking for all these years, right? And then someone comes along and says, no, we're making that illegal. We're making that illegal. It didn't work. You know what you ended up with? Al Capone. Mm-hmm. And people dying and Tommy guns in the street and the Valentine's Day massacre and all that. Yep. Okay? It's what goes down. People get mashed up. They go home, they're waking from the cave. They've been in the cave all day. They need a little libation. Mm-hmm. Okay? That's just the way it is. Now, from the beginning of time, Jezebel and them was hanging around. There's outsourcers. Mm-hmm. There's service providers. Jezebel and them.
Service provider. His telecommunications.
Huh?
Sounds like you need to start one agency.
So what you work with the woman named Magdalene?
Magdalene.
Mary?
Mary. Why?
Your boy Jose,
Eminem?
what your name? Jesus say don't stone, huh?
That's
Let he who is not sin throw the first stone. That's what they've been saying. Stone. Okay? All right? And yet they're trying to control this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's not controllable. Go with your girl over there from Soweto. Okay?
we need
The
to have
children's.
I find out.
The children's.
That would be one hot show. I promise you.
But you know what I'm saying, right?
Oh my goodness!
That's a
Oh
different
my
viewpoint.
gosh!
But so
You
we
know what that
pretend.
would
There's a
do.
lot of pretense going on. That's what I'm saying. It's so silly.
Everywhere.
It's-
And everything.
Yeah.
It's not just, it's not only that area of life.
You know, my man don't comment too much. Just out of interest, my man, Ken.
don't
We talked about
What do you feel about the outsourcing?
Pull that mic close, man, Kendrick.
I mean, what
Kendrick,
Kendrick
come
is
on,
This is
like?
come on,
conceptual.
Kendrick, pull
Your
the mic.
wife or your friend can't hold nothing against you.
No, man. Go
He
Ken.
ain't into that.
He say 2 thumbs up. He say thumbs up.
What?
To
For
outsourcing?
He understands the concept. We're
No,
talking,
he didn't. He was in an agreement
He
with
went
that.
like that.
No.
Kendrick, you changed
Kendrick,
your mind?
could you not go like this? Yeah.
Oh, you did.
Oh.
You see, you pull a
See,
cock
that's
out.
good. just to say hey.
Just to say, hey.
He said
No,
hey
my
for
God,
that.
no,
He's
listen,
into
listen,
that.
He ain't into that.
Yeah, what?
He
He
ain't into
said he's not
that.
into it.
Listen, you have your outsourcers and you have your outsourcees. That's all I try at you.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah.
You're
yeah.
trying to keep people in business.
Listen to
around
me.
here,
Listen to
especially on
me.
this
Listen to me.
island.
Listen to me. Listen to me. I am just saying that the woman has a point.
Yeah.
Do you agree, Rogan Smith?
I do agree.
Yeah.
Do you agree, Candelaria
Yeah.
Thompson?
Yeah.
I agree
Do
with
you
you.
agree, Kendrick Williams? Yeah. See, but he only saying I. But he go like that.
Hey. Yeah.
And you can't listen. And the guys who are in the car right now, and I'll have to answer this question as well when I get home. You can't be scared to say you agree with the concept. Don't incriminate yourself. But say you got the conceptual.
Knowing that it goes both ways.
No, it goes every ways.
No,
Both.
that is.
It's
you
only
need,
both
you need to
ways.
state
No, what I'm
that
saying
because
is-
they
I'm
think it's
saying
only
that
okay
women
for
could
them.
outsource.
Listen to me, Grape. When
Grape?
the people here.
Grape?
Listen to
Grape?
the
No,
I
people
see grape.
here.
Oh,
Listen to me, Grape. Listen,
This ain't grape no more.
Listen to me.
wait till I get it again.
When the two people sitting in the car right now as we speak, driving home, no one moving, you know.
A lot of side eye action.
You had a laugh yet? Hey! What? Okay. No one moving.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
super quiet.
In fact, they didn't even hear it. It's like, oh, you see the thing? Okay.
Channel getting
What did you have
changed.
for lunch
Brazilian
today?
embassy over there.
you
It
know, I
is
had
happening
salad.
right now as we speak on Shirley Street.
Yeah.
There are people
Let's
driving, and no one is looking in any direction except straight.
Boy, it was hot today, eh?
Sweatering. Okay? Because you know why? Even if you agree with it conceptually,
That means that's
So
what
that's
you want
what
to
you
do.
into. That's what you
That's what
into.
you
so
into.
you had to outsource it.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Uh-huh.
you
How
don't
much you-
outsource
and
somebody.
especially if you have 3 children. See, if you have 3 children, like the woman say.
You're too tired.
Uh-huh.
Kendrick, the show been destroying relationships for 3 seasons.
No,
No,
because
we're not
For
destroying.
3 seasons.
it's conceptual.
You know, I don't like when you say stuff like that, Rogan.
For 3 seasons.
Because let me tell you, yes, no, that's not true.
Is it unhealthy
I
or
saw
healthy? It's
no,
healthy.
because there's this guy this morning that I met during work or whatever, right? Getting married soon, and I said, boy, and mature
You
fella.
said boy?
I just said boy.
Yeah.
I said, he's at the age where I mean.
Uh-huh.
He's not like early 20s. Like he's made a very firm decision. And all I said, I never discourage. I don't discourage people from getting married. I just want you to go into marriage with your eyes fully open and accepting and choosing your own way.
So this answer to a fellow who I saw the other day who was getting married, he happens to work with me, and his let's just say his significant other works with someone I know.
Right.
Okay.
Which he does.
Which she does, right? So I said to him, I said, yeah, I hear you're getting married. So he said, yeah. I said, my condolences. So he pimp on me.
That's
so,
good for you. That's good for
to
you.
other
That-
people.
that is not a nice thing to say to someone who's getting
and
married.
they say, so she said, oh yes, I'm getting. And well, let me just say, so my wife, it's all humor. My
Right.
wife says to the person who works with her, oh, it's so wonderful you're getting married and all that. And the girl says, well, your husband had a completely different approach. So she said that she would come home and bop me. But okay, but it's got to be humor. It's humor. It is my condolences, by the way. But okay, that's based on it's humor.
Yes.
But you got to know what you're getting into because it ain't easy.
No, it's not easy.
It's not easy.
I was gonna say you do want to know what you're getting into, but you also don't want the individual to be jaded about it.
Right.
Like
that means you don't want to know.
Oh, why are you going in? Like what?
That means you don't want to know.
No, that's not
you
true.
You don't want to be jaded.
I think with anything and everything, there's balance. And so marriage has its upsides as well, and it can be fun, and if you love your partner and you have a great time.
You have a great time.
I mean,
it's work.
But no, it's work, and know that days aren't always perfect. It's a lot of work.
It's, you know what it is? And forget about the word marriage. We always focus.
Right.
It's cohabitation.
Yeah. It's just...
No, cohabitation,
roommates
man.
cohabitate.
What's that?
Roommates
I
cohabitate.
would rather
It's beyond that.
Because you
I'd rather
still
say
are helping each other to grow individually.
Okay, but
I don't like
cohabitation.
No, but when I say no.
Yeah.
I didn't mean that from that particular way. I'm saying that, yes, marriage is much more than cohabitation. I get that. I'm saying, though, that when you cohabitate with someone, which is a very intricate element of marriage, you're going to have problems. Again, make you a bet. Rogan, I hope you don't mind me saying this. Your husband lives in the States. She lives here. She has less cohabitation issues than we do.
She's straight.
Yeah.
And he's
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you have all the other elements of marriage except the cohabitation on a regular basis.
That's a happy
And
marriage.
And when you go to cohabitate,
I don't have my spouse here all the time, and that presents another challenge.
but when you go to cohabitate,
It is
you
rough.
ain't going to go
I can
cohab,
imagine.
you're going to co-op.
Ka-chunga-chunga. But listen,
Co-opulate.
you know what's so funny about that? Because when my husband comes here, it's like, I'm so used to having the bed to myself.
Exactly.
It's like, go over, man.
exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, you in my space
When
now.
are you leaving again?
I did ask him that.
Cohabitation is difficult.
When you leaving,
That's
man?
mean, but I did say that one time.
Any mode of cohabitation, whether it's a roommate, whether it's I don't even want to cohabitate in a hospital room with someone.
Well, that's what
I
I was
want my
saying.
own.
We don't cohabitate with our parents or our siblings for the rest of our lives. We get rid of them.
No.
We get tired. We
Yeah.
need to go. So
That proximity.
that's the only relationship that you have forever.
Right.
You can't get rid of.
Yeah.
And not to mention, so you're going to stay in the bathroom while I'm here? Okay, good. All right.
We gotta take a break.
We'll
for
take a
news.
break. Okay. Yes, it's always
you're
good
on
to
the air.
learn about the folks that you work with, and that's what we do. We try to discover each
God.
another. My boy with a fan. He had church. Anyway,
It get too high.
so yes,
One day Kendrick will write a book, and
as
it's
you
going to
work-
be so deadly.
Oh,
Kendrick,
my
remember,
goodness.
I'm your friend.
as you work with folks, you get to know them, and it's interesting. You get to know them. You get to know their insides, their outsides,
Really?
and you appreciate more the intricacies of
Edward,
personality. Yes,
the
ma'am.
one person who's going to come out of this unscathed is Mr. Kendrick
No, he
Williams.
isn't gonna come out
He
unscathed.
coming out
Tight-lipped.
unscathed.
No, 'cause he's the
Kendrick,
voice
you'd
of
be
all.
great in the
So
mob.
smart.
He'd be great in the mob.
No, he's the one you have to watch out for.
Yeah, he's deadly.
Yeah,
He's deadly.
Yeah.
Mess up every
Yeah.
We're going to get screwed.
Yeah. If you're in a boat, he got to get throat face. We have to gang up on him
Yeah.
in the lifeboat. Get him out right away. No.
Oh, my
So we got to
God.
team up.
Yeah,
now.
Yeah, we got to team up. We
So
get you, Kendrick.
anyway, it's always a pleasure, Candy.
Yes, we went from
exploring.
hitting to outsourcing.
Yeah, exploring.
We didn't even get to the spanking like
No,
that.
we need to get back to that no more.
We know what you into. We know what you into, and we know what we into. You ain't into.
I
You
ain't
can't
like
even.
spanking.
You can't even.
You can't have my
Like,
pen.
the wind of a spank can't even pass no one in your world.
Yes, I'm not.
Okay.
Yes.
You can't even
No.
go like that to the person.
No.
Okay. Candy, it's always a pleasure,
Thank you very much.
and
for
we
having
shall
me.
see you
Thank
next
you,
week.
Goldie.
Goldie,
Yeah,
Purpose
okay.
and Gold.
Yeah.
Yes.
You going gold next week?
I just guessed what you said.
You going
Huh?
gold next week?
No. Maybe some. Gold
Maybe even
Street.
tonight. You never know. All right, listen. Always a pleasure. And our guest this afternoon, who we're going to love talking to, is. And it's interesting. I'm going to say something to Candy off the air. Our guest this afternoon is Patrick Ramming, and that's going to be a great conversation. We're looking forward to that. We'll be right back. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Ed Fields here along with Rogan Smith. And our guest this afternoon is Patrick Ramming. Patrick Ramming, that's why I have this box. I constructed it under my chair.
I see.
Because the way that, see, you're into the ergonomics and everything like that in architecture. The way that this table was built, it was actually designed, if you notice Mr. Kendrick over there probably has a high-rise chair. It was designed for either standing up, or that was the philosophy of the engineers at the time, or sitting in one of those high-rise chairs, those like a stool almost. That's not comfortable for moi. So I purchased this chair, and then I had to put a box under it to bring it to level. Sorry I didn't get a box for you, sir.
Well, that's okay. I accept my lower position.
We're actually on the same level, but, who knows. Now, listen, it's always a pleasure having you because obviously the...
By the way, am I an outsourcer or an outsourcee?
Well, only you would know that. I can't see. I don't get into your personal things.
He was listening.
You were listening. Is that why you stood up? Because you wanted to come in here?
You stand up.
Slightly confused.
Well, you did you hear the back? You heard the thing?
From the lady?
Oh, well, I got to play the thing for you, man.
No.
See, we try to have, and we continue to say this, we have serious discussion, but there's always humor. So let me, and I'd like to hear your view on this.
Yeah.
And remember,
Candy should have still been here.
Remember, your significant other is probably listening. So there you go.
I know very many married women will then begin to maybe even attack or oppose my position. But I feel that side checks are important. We need in society to acknowledge the importance of these people and stop marginalizing them. Some of us are tired. You've had 3 children. You must still have a career and kill in houses. Then you must come home and service somebody. But if you outsource and allow others to service, you arrive to a happy man.
It's just a conclusion.
Were
you able to hear it? Because I don't know.
Yes, I was able to hear it.
So you now know the context.
Yeah. So what's your thoughts?
You're
on
a
that?
civilized man.
I don't understand what the conversation's about.
Well, you don't understand the conversation is about?
No, half the world functions like that.
Oh, see, he's being like, this is the norm.
It's not a big deal.
See, he in another world of thing. Or as my man...
I'm serious.
As one of our, what do you call it, former ministers of the county said, I'm a natural man.
No. Isn't most of Oriental culture?
I always tell people.
Don't they function that way?
I always tell people I don't understand how the world lives because we have these standards, right? It's as if they draw a line, I don't know, at the equator or some imaginary longitudinal line. Yeah. And on one side of the line, you can have as many wives as you can. And on the other side of the line, as you tiptoe over the line, the peni start functioning in a monogamous way. And then when you step back over, okay, it's so I don't get it, but it's I'm only talking that conceptually.
I was gonna say
some of us eat barracuda and some of us don't.
Well, that's maybe because some places don't have no barracuda.
There you go.
Okay.
There you go.
There you go.
You got it.
All right. Well, listen, Pat. I don't know how to segue from that. Okay, but I suppose there's a way of segueing because we're talking about, as we have in the past, a combination of our culture, our environment, our way of living. If I maybe blend the two of those together. And I suppose you could say that, would it be, only because I feel the need to segue, there's no other reason. Would you say that we have essentially outsourced our way of living, our culture, our environment?
No. Actually, there's a very serious side to what I just said, very serious side, that to our detriment, we've ignored. We use the term cultural values, and we say that from 0 to 6, every child develops or acquires their cultural values. Well, what are cultural values? Cultural values are those things that your particular society believe. What is right, what is wrong, what is good, what is bad, what is fair, what is unfair, what is decent, what is polite. But those things are specific to your particular
Absolutely.
culture. They're not global or international.
Agreed.
So, as a child, when I acquire my Bahamian cultural values, they're very different from the child that's acquiring cultural values in Afghanistan. Right? And when we run into problems is when we start believing that the cultural values that we acquire should apply to everybody.
Everybody, internally, externally, in the society we live?
No. They should apply to everybody in our society.
Right.
Because that's what they are. I mean, that's how our society functions, or that's the only way our society can function.
Is it?
Yes, it is.
Why is that? Why can't I have differing views and behaviors from my society?
It's very simple.
I might be ostracized.
No, it's not about your behavior. It's not about your behavior.
What is it about?
It's about your belief, not about your behavior. You know, you could decide that you're going to drive the wrong way up a street. That's a decision. That's your behavior. But you understand on day one that there is a right way of driving up that street and a wrong way of driving up that street. And all of us must understand what the right way of driving up the street is and the wrong way of driving up the street is. If we choose to drive the wrong way, that is a choice. That's our behavior.
Okay, so that is something that could impact somebody else, though, Mr. Raming. What if I have a belief system or a behavior that only impacts me?
You can't possibly have that. It's
yes,
impossible.
I can.
It is impossible.
If I decide that
you got it from somewhere, so it has to come from
outside this society. Outside of this society, yes, I got it from somewhere else, but outside of the society.
I'm going to say something that most people have difficulty dealing with. You acquired, just like me and everybody in this room, you acquired your basic cultural values before you were 7 years old. Right? That is a fact.
I don't disagree with that.
Right? Now,
I want to ask him something.
After that, yeah, you can make some minor changes. And you can certainly change your behavior. Right? But your concept of right and wrong will not change.
Who did I acquire those from?
I wouldn't know.
Okay, so if I acquire them from my parents...
I could tell you that up to the beginning of the 20th century, it would have been your parents.
And what if my parents aren't from this society?
Do they live in this society?
Yes, but but if they come from a different culture, if they come from a different society and they're planted here...
You're making nuance the point. That's nuance. That's not fundamental. That's not fundamental. They couldn't function
I don't think it
here.
Should be
they couldn't function here if they were so different in their belief. They would not be able to function here.
I don't know
so
if
let
I
me
agree
ask
with
you
that.
this question. Let's address that in the practical sense.
Yeah.
So in our environment, in this country, we have a Chinese community, we have a Greek community, we have a Haitian community, and we have other smaller communities, okay? Now, let's take what I would call, say, something that I think most of us see in terms of two ethnic groups specifically, some major cultural differences.
Yeah.
The Chinese community, and maybe to a lesser extent, the Greek community, okay? Now, certainly the Chinese community is not a Christian-based community. I mean, there are obviously Chinese that go to Christian churches. The Greek Orthodox churches, while it's Christian-based, is certainly a different, fundamentalist type, more Orthodox, I should say, than the traditional Christian church we know in the Bahamas. There are different foods. There are different mores and norms. So,
like what, for example?
Well, for instance, different food is different.
Yeah,
they eat baklava, eating
but that's not isn't
that culture? Isn't that a part of culture?
That's not a cultural value.
Okay, so values.
I was very specific.
Okay,
it's your concepts of right and wrong and good and bad and fair and unfair, etc. And you'll find that those Christians and Greeks and
those values aren't just unique to the Bahamas. Yeah. Those are kind of Judeo-Christian values.
No. And that's why I say every every society, we live in a society, and you know,
what's different between the
said,
American Baptists and the Bahamian Baptists?
What's Baptist got to do with it?
No, I'm talking about values.
Baptist doesn't have anything to do with it. The Baptists and the Baptists and the Muslims.
Take away the Baptists. What's the difference between an American Christian set of values and a Bahamian set of Christian values? Because let's face it, the majority of our values, whether we like it or not, come from these fundamental Christian.
Wait. Hold on a minute. I never said that your values are so unique that you can't find them elsewhere. Okay. I never said that. Okay?
You're just saying they were formed before 7 years old.
I'm saying that in your particular society, there are concepts of right, wrong, good, bad, fair, unfair, polite, impolite, etc., that are specific to your society. Your grandmother taught you ways to treat old people that is specific to your society, right? If you want to talk about a couple of values that may not be, well, yeah, I could say American, Bahamian, and Afghan,
Western,
say, right? Yeah. One of the American values is that Americans will die for America. You know, they join the Marines and they are proud to die for America. There's no such thing in the Bahamas. Bahamians have not found anything they're prepared to die for.
I'm full of that.
I agree 100%.
Bahamians have not found anything they're willing to die for.
Well, maybe one, but that's another story.
Right.
That's where your outsourcing come in.
The idea of walking into some place with a bomb around you and blowing yourself up.
I'll have to FedEx that.
Is something that someone from, say, Afghanistan or somewhere, that's part of their fundamental, their value system, right? And I'm not saying there's anything right, wrong,
It's just the way it is.
It's just
the way it is.
And you know, I use an example to help you understand what I'm talking about. The example is the computer. When a computer comes off the assembly line, it's useless. What's the first thing you put into it?
Your name, password, something like that.
The plug?
No.
What?
An operating system.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, well, I don't put that in. Someone's put that in when they reach.
Yeah.
That is reach with me.
Yeah.
But your operating system is your value system. That's how you see the world. That's how you process the world.
There's no doubt that we are formed in our early years. There's no doubt about that.
Well, you know why that's so important? You're trying to understand what to do about crime. Right? The reason you can't figure out what to do about crime is that you don't realize that you create people.
Right.
You build people.
Well, let me say we got to go to commercial.
And if that 0 to 6 time is not done right,
you're in problems.
There you go.
We'll be right back. When we left, our guest this afternoon is Mr. Pat Ramming. I know we were going to talk about some other stuff, but we can talk about this right now. We were talking about, the values, and this all has to, this is why a conversation like this has to take many parts, right? Because it's a kind of building block to get to where you want to get to. When you left, we were talking about the human being has not changed, and that you're formed essentially between 0 and 6, and it kind of tied into it.
No. You're one aspect of your formation.
What's
happens
that? Okay,
from 0 to 6.
All right.
Yeah.
So, and as I said, it ties into something we had when we had Jeff Lloyd on, who was talking about the education system. That said basically, and I know he wouldn't put it this way politically, maybe, or maybe he would, knowing Jeff, that basically at this stage of the game, what we have to work on in order to get the society or the whatever we want, the outcome we want, is we have to focus on 0 to 6. We have to focus on pre-kindergarten, kindergarten, maybe grades 1 and 2.
Miss Garraway said the same thing too when she was here.
And it goes back to your point, Pat, and I want to make this point. It's that the human being has not changed in its anatomical or cerebral capacity, but the influences that build this person, because you said, you made a statement that says we're in the business of building people.
Absolutely.
Correct? And what we've been doing is building them perhaps in an inferior way. At one point, Ford used to make bumpers, with big-ass bumpers. And you could put a jack on it and jack up your car and change your tire, right? Now, first of all, you wouldn't even dare to put one of those kind of jacks on that bumper; it would rip apart. You got to change the whole bumper when a car hits it because it cracks up. It's not built the same way. Is that a decent analogy?
No.
All right. Tell me what.
Here's the analogy I want to use.
Okay.
We talked about 0 to 6. First of all, I'm going to just talk about what I mean when I say building people. There are several stages in which people get built. And the stages are fairly straightforward. I was curious to find that the Chinese have an understanding that every so many years you pass a transition in your life, right? The number of years may not agree with the way I see it, but it's the same thing. 0 to 6 is when your operating system gets installed. Roughly 6 to 12 is when what the computer people call your basic programs are installed. You know what the basic programs are? They're not just any program. They're three very specific programs. One is a number crunching program. One is a word processing program. And one is a program that allows you to store and manipulate information. We used to call it reading, writing, and arithmetic. But without those 3 programs, no computer can work. So all the rest of those programs would be absolutely useless. So it's not until those 2 stages that you can get to that 3rd stage where you pick up the tools for investigating the world around you. That's when you can install Wikipedia, or you can get onto the internet, or you could go looking for...
You can browse.
You can browse. Absolutely. Right? And that's what senior schooling is supposed to be about. Right? This foolishness we have of worrying about whether somebody comes first, second, and third is killing us. The reality is that there's no empirical evidence that how you did in school has anything to do with how you're going to do in life. Doesn't exist. Now, I'm not saying don't go to school or don't do well in school.
Well, you need the original programs installed.
I'm saying that unless you install the operating system, then the basic programs, then the discovery programs, right? Then you're going to end up with people who are in a system where they, one, don't have the tools for discovery, and therefore they're locked out.
Reasoning.
They may not have an operating system that allows them to function socially, right? So when you run into somebody who's 16 years old and you say, boy, that kid don't look like you know the difference between right and wrong, you might be right. Because at the time when he was supposed to be having that program installed, We were worried about something else.
It's a very scary thing, and I'll tell you why it's scary.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and I always use this example. You know, you drive around this town on a Sunday,
Mm-hmm.
and I invite people to do it on a Sunday morning, okay, when essentially the streets are almost void of people, okay, and it is a completely different scenario than when it's populated by people, and what you're discussing is because it is void of humankind, essentially, all of the issues that go with it are void, right? I would venture to say that you probably find Sunday morning is your least crime period.
More than likely.
Okay, because you know people are hungover or they're going to church or whatever the deal. The street is void of people. And what's scary, Pat, is as much as we do with policing and this thing and that thing, and you say you've been saying it for many years, the reality is, very simply, we simply haven't focused on forming our people.
In fact,
in that 0 to 6 year period of time.
In fact, what we've done is we've taken something. When I said something off air that I think I should repeat. Today's young Bahamian believes that nothing happened in this world before they arrived. That is, they believe that because this is the 21st century, they must redefine everything. Well, what they must redefine is not the problem, but the tools that they use to solve the problem. Man has been doing this for a million years. Every generation is different from the generation before. The only thing that changes, though, is the tools used to solve the problem. Your grandparents had the same problems you have, but you got different tools to deal with your problems.
Which, by the way, create other problems.
Absolutely, but they don't really create.
Well, I'm going to dispute that. I mean, you look at example. We said it on this station many months ago.
Yeah.
I talked about Facebook and social media. We used to have this argument, Rogan and I. And the reality is, as a result of these new tools, the issues that we've created to the point now where Zuckerberg and his people are no longer sacrosanct. Okay, and now are realizing the issues they're creating by this. We would have previously had a filtered media, a controlled media, controlled publishing, etc. That no longer exists. So what's the impact of that, Pat Franny?
No, well, you know, it's interesting that you're right, but it's no different from what happened before. For my grandmother, color television was the internet. And that was a whole different bunch of problems. I could see things that she would never even dreamt people would be able to see.
But how much of an impact negatively did that have versus, say, someone coming on Facebook and saying,
say something
Pat
about you.
is, copulating with...
There are two reasons why that's irrelevant. One is that everything is relative. The impact that something had in 1929 or 1945 compared with the impact that it has today is you can't compare them.
Color TV didn't cause suicides.
No, but Peyton Place did.
Yeah, but whether it was black and white or...
No. I understand this. Yeah. Maybe you don't understand this. Peyton Place was a
soap opera.
Right. That changed American life. Somebody thought, this suburban idea is an interesting idea. Let's put a whole bunch of people that have problems into the same neighborhood, because otherwise it would be a pretty boring play if we didn't have them all in the same neighborhood.
That was the original reality show.
Absolutely. One generation later, it was standard suburbia. It was standard suburbia. So it's always happening. We don't notice it, but and it will continue to happen. As much as we feel that the internet is currently creating these unbelievable problems we have, 25 years from now, it'll be even worse.
This is why I like these discussions. And, Rogan Smith has taught me the art of, learning through the process, right? Because as you say that, I say to myself, okay, so we're talking about the problems the internet caused, right?
Yeah.
But then, I got to go back and think, well, did I really want to be in World War One? That was a fun time. So, like you say, there's always a problem of some gargantuan, level.
And imagine when a nuclear device was dropped on another country.
Yeah.
Right?
Twice.
I mean, that's an unimaginable thing.
I mean, hundreds of thousands of people, boom, in one moment.
Yeah. I mean...
Yeah, it's almost as if it's almost like nothing's happening now compared to that.
In that century, that was a tool that people had created to deal with those times. It wasn't created for dropping on people. It was created supposedly for other purposes. But what changes is not the people. What changes is the tools they use to deal
and how they apply
with their life. And the reason that's important is that as you walk around, and you hear it more and more, you hear parents say, boy, these some different children today. They ain't like the children in the old days.
It is relative, though.
And that's not true.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone would have thought
children.
that Hitler was any better off than some of the people now.
They're the same children.
We got a break in the air here, Pat. We'll be right back. This is very good stuff. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Ed Fields here. I know that when we brought this gentleman on, I knew we were supposed to be talking about one thing like urban planning and all this type of things, which we'll have many days to talk about. But even that in itself as a symptom, I want to use that, maybe that's not the right word to use, of the issues that we have, until we solve our thought process, we're not going to solve a lot of things.
No.
And I keep on, it kind of, that's why I said I think I alluded to this thing about being a little scary, because every year that thing that I say is we're void of on Sundays, human beings.
Yeah.
Every year we bump out more people who fill that void on other days that are void of this thought process. And then
That's
we
scary.
wonder why, when it comes to anything. And I just told you I spent the whole day going from one entity to the next about dealing with problems. And in every single one of those scenarios, and I'm in like in a stress mode right now, things of just people being able to communicate the same thing has created more and more problems. So, Pat,
stage 2.
The programming can't wait if you didn't get to stage 1.
Stage, let me tell you one of the things about stage 1. I mentioned that up until the beginning of the 20th century, it was fairly automatic that your parents were the ones that helped you develop that system of cultural values.
Sure.
And around the beginning of the 20th century, it was the end of the industrial age, or actually the middle of the industrial age, and everybody wanted to go to work, so the church said, I'll take care of the kids for you. Which was no problem, because the church had the same structure as the family. So that was cool.
Right. But
around the middle of the century, something called daycare became commercial.
Or required.
No, it became commercial.
Yeah.
Now, when it became commercial, here's what happened. And forgive me if this is just a little bit dramatic, right? Because Ed has a daycare facility and Pat has a daycare facility, Ed says, I got to get more people for my daycare facility. So what I'm going to do is I've got this reading system. I'm going to teach the kids to read before they go to primary school. And so Pat says, I discovered a counting system. I'm going to teach them to count before they go to primary school. So
you're just coming up with marketing tools.
So absolutely, but specific marketing tools, because what I've now done is I've introduced academics in a time when the focus is supposed to be on understanding the absolute fundamentals about relationships between human beings. Right, wrong, good, bad, fair, unfair, etc. But now I'm worried about whether I'm going to come first and second in my academic thing. Okay? So after I introduce my counting, Ed says, next year we're wearing uniforms. Now we're getting social. Pat says, uniforms? That's a joke. Next year we're going to have a graduation ceremony. Ed says, graduation? Ha! We're having a prom. Sounds ridiculous. But 29 years ago, Dandelion Preschool had the first preschool prom. 6 and 7 year olds sitting on a car, dressed in a tuxedo,
correct. And I was going to get to that point. That's so true.
Right? Now,
it's true.
I'm not blaming Dandelion for anything.
That's my old school, by the way.
Because at the time, everybody in the society thought, what a great idea. Right? There were
I think I thought that's nuts. But anyway, go ahead.
There were one or two of us that might have thought, but the reason it happened was because that's where the society was at that time.
Yeah.
Right? Now, I'm please forgive me. I swear I am not blaming anybody specifically. What I'm just going to point out is take a look at the age of the people who are shooting and killing one another today.
Oh yeah, you say 29. I actually say the age. I use that same correlation. I have a different time frame. I talked about how things change post-independence, not because of independence, but because of the shift we made in terms of the quality of education. It's a whole thing.
A whole bunch of things.
But it all boils down to the same thing.
That's correct.
Education.
Now
there's a whole bunch of definitions on that, right?
It all boils down to education. Right. Absolutely correct. What I believe is that our definition of education has unfortunately been
mutated.
Yeah, so it's Shanghai. I just came back from the Far East. I have a definition of education that I'd like to advance.
Yes, sir.
It's the preparation of every single citizen for productive participation in their society. That's what education ought to be, in my opinion. Okay? That's got nothing to do with what we currently do. That is not what we're attempting to do.
I'll tell you what's interesting about that. I'm going to just throw this one at you. Give you an example. One of the things that you talk about values, one of the things that is a value in the United States was, and I don't know about now, but it used to be, it was called the work ethic. Okay? Now, just to show you the difference. So in our society where we were domestics and all this sort of thing, and we decided that when, to improve our lives and our children's lives, our children ain't waking. Okay? But why you think Pat child waking? Things was he tight. So we didn't allow our children to work, okay? And so what happens? You talk about preparing a society, right? When you're in high school in the United States of America, when school is out and on the weekends, you're working at the mall or the fast food restaurant, whatever it is, you're working. And you earn your money and you buy your car, right? And so by the time you leave high school, not college, time you leave high school, if you're going to go to a full-time job, you're prepared for that full-time job. You've gone to the minor leagues of working gradually, as opposed to our scenario where you go from high school where you never worked, and then boom, you're working 8 hours a day in a customer service environment.
But that's not entirely true, though. I mean, we have had traditionally lots of primary school and high school students who've been packing groceries or selling newspapers in this country.
And I would say this to you, Ms. Rogan Smith, you're very observant. And if you want to see the exception...
And they turned out great.
Right. Those are the exceptions, right? Those same packing boys, I say it to people all the time, and those same gas station attendants, okay, and newspaper boys. But I'm saying as a basic... overall scenario,
I accept your point.
You don't see middle class kids working at McDonald's and at the mall and all that on the weekends.
That is true.
You don't see that. That is the norm in the United States of America. So it goes back to your point, Pat, about preparing people to be productive citizens.
But guess what?
I agree with you.
Guess what?
Yes, sir.
There was a time in the United States when the same thing that has happened here over the last 10, 15 years happened in the United States. That is what created the hippie generation. The Americans who had incredible work ethic, who went into the Second World War, who dropped out of school and couldn't afford to finish college or finish college at night, swore their children were not going to have to do that. Their children were going to go to college, and they weren't going to have to work like them. And those poor children arrived at the end of college and couldn't figure out why they went to college. Right? And a lot of them very brilliant people, but without purpose. Right?
But fortunately, at least there was a critical mass of others who didn't do that.
Fortunately, no. They saved the United States. They saved the United States. They saved the hippies. And the reason they saved the United States was in their not doing anything, the one thing they did was ask themselves, why am I here? And the greatest period of introspection in the United States that ever happened in the 60s and the 70s. All of those Eastern religions and all that came in, and that's how America got out of the Vietnam War.
Well, certainly all the college kids that I went to college with, I don't know if their parents were hippies or not, but they worked. They all came to school with a car they paid for, or a stereo they paid for.
You know, those same hippies, most of them ended up being very good workers, strong workers, etc. After the Vietnam War. After the Vietnam War, but the pre-Vietnam War period, they were the ones asking, why am I here? What the hell am I doing?
But the parallel I was trying to draw, even if it wasn't, accurate enough, was the necessity to prepare people to be productive citizens.
But you're not. There's one thing you're not doing for me.
Well, I don't want to. I want to make sure I'm not doing anything for you.
Like you said, my wife is listening.
Yeah. And what's that one thing, sir?
There's this word responsibility. I've said, I think I said it on this show. If you were to take a whole bunch of young miscreants off the street, put them in a room, and study them for a short while and ask, what's wrong with these kids? The word that might come out would be that they lack character. So the question becomes, how did the generation before them get character? And the answer is that in the socializing system, in the way they grew up, there were institutions and devices whose mission it was to develop character.
Well, the words I was going to use was brought upsy, which, in my view, all of those institutions and individuals, etc., they contributed to that brought upsy.
And the reason I use the word character rather than brought upsy is because I could segue into the fact that if you looked at the mission statements of the Boys Brigade, the Girls Brigade,
Scouts,
the Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts, the Sea Scouts, every single one of them, that is their mission. So if you want to save today's youth, all you got to do is make them as strong as you can.
As we speak today, my wife was attending a meeting with the Girl Guides. It's as if, and I blame myself, and you talk about responsibility. Now, this is what's interesting. This is what's interesting, because I don't hold those people, the characterless, as you speak, as you say, responsible, because they are a product of a lack of responsibility for others. So, for instance, I came out of that system of Boy Scouts. Where's my responsibility to go back into that organization to contribute to that organization?
Let me put a sort of point on what you're saying. You came out of that organization because at a certain point in time, your old man grabbed you by the ear and took you somewhere and said, "This boy come to join the Scouts." He didn't say, "Hey, do you feel like joining the Scouts?" Right? Someone knew that their responsibility was to put you in a position where you would develop character. My grandmother probably didn't have a third grade education, but she knew that one of her responsibilities was to grab me by the neck, drag me to Wesley Hall, and say, "This boy come to join the Boys Brigade."
But let me ask you a question. If that were the case, that means that anyone has the capacity to do that. And if that is the case, that means that those organizations should still be flourishing.
Except that the parents have changed their level of responsibility.
Yes.
And the reason they changed it is because they decided what we started off talking about these different times, they decided times are different. These children are different. I respect the children. The children need to make their own decisions. And if I ask them and they say no, I got to respect their decision. Yeah. Well, the problem is you're asking a child to make an adult decision.
It goes back to where we doing the prom and the academics and daycare.
There you go.
Yeah. And, it's interesting. We don't change our view on puppies, You have a puppy, you need to make sure he isn't peeing in the rug. So you train him not to pee in the rug.
Absolutely.
Now what you're saying is if you were to transform that to how we treat children, we go, now, puppy, do you think you should be peeing in the thing?
Absolutely.
Come on now.
We look at the puppy and not only that, we worry that if the puppy goes, oh, we say,
I wonder if I'm being too harsh.
Can I take him to the puppy psychologist?
Or I wonder if we're being too harsh on the puppy.
That's right.
Yeah.
We've been too
it's
hard on,
interesting. They talk about,
on the puppy.
and we have to go, but they talk about the impact of the traditional disciplining of children as being negative, but don't realize that traditional thing actually ended up with good people.
That's how we got where we are.
Yeah. Well, I got to bring you back to talk with Candy.
I just got to say.
Huh?
What's wrong with Candy?
And her ilk and her age group. All right. Listen, Pat, we didn't even talk about a single building, but this is building the foundation. So we'll have you back. I remember we promised we were going to have you back once a month, and we didn't commit to that. So now we're committing to it again. So by tomorrow or the next day, we will have a schedule of days when you can come in and speak to us, because there's no sense rushing it. There's a lot of, and people are listening. And it's funny, and I'm sorry, Kendrick, I know we're going over, but it's funny how we started off earlier last week talking about spanking, okay, and we kind of continue that today with Candy, and then you come in here and you kind of put that in context about we just really can't let the puppy pee on the carpet.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
It's unacceptable. We'll be back on Thursday. Thank you very much, Pat.
Thank you, guys.